You used to be able to rent a one-bedroom apartment on a barista's salary. You used to split a place with a friend and still have money left over. You used to think that if you worked hard and showed up every day, at the very least you could afford a roof over your head. You can't anymore.
People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week with some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual, playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent.
Half of every renter in America is now spending more than a third of their income just on housing, not saving, not investing, not building a future, just surviving. Paying someone else's mortgage with nothing to show for it. But here's what no one tells you. Your rent didn't go up because of inflation. It didn't go up because your city got popular. Your rent went up because an algorithm told your landlord to raise it, and your landlord said yes. What if I told you that the biggest price-fixing scheme in American history isn't happening in oil or tech or pharmaceuticals? It's happening in the place you sleep at night. Right now, the largest landlords in the country are feeding your rent data into a single piece of software. That software tells them exactly how much to charge you, and it's designed to push the number as high as the market can bear. Not as high as is fair, not as high as you can comfortably afford, as high as you'll tolerate before you leave.
That the rents, just because of supply and demand, have gone through the roof.
The median rent for an apartment or house is $4,390 a month, a 54% jump since 2012.
It doesn't matter whether you make, you make $100,000 or not. You haven't planned for a 54% rent increase. And it's caused a lot of people to be displaced.
And if that sounds like collusion to you, congratulations. The Department of Justice agrees. Today, we're pulling apart the modern rent machine. We're going to trace how Wall Street bought your neighborhood, how a single algorithm raised rents on 16 million apartments, and why the system that's supposed to protect you was designed by the people profiting from you. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to 2008. The housing market just collapsed. Millions of Americans lost their homes to foreclosure. Entire neighborhoods were hollowed out. But where most people saw devastation, one firm saw opportunity. Blackstone, the world's largest private equity firm, run by a CEO who took home $1.3 billion in compensation last year, started buying foreclosed homes. Not one or two, thousands. They created a subsidiary called Invitation Homes and began snapping up houses in bulk across the Sun Belt, Phoenix, Atlanta, Tampa, Dallas, sometimes buying entire blocks. They weren't flipping them, they were converting them into rentals. Families who lost their homes in the crash were now renting them back from Wall Street. By 2024, Blackstone owned over 300,000 rental units, making it the single largest landlord in the country. And they weren't alone. Private equity firms piled in everywhere. They realized something. In a country where wages are flat and home prices are sky high, tens of millions of people have no choice but to rent. And if you control enough of the supply, you control the price. In some neighborhoods in Phoenix and Atlanta, corporate investors were buying 1 in 4 homes sold. Regular families couldn't compete against firms making all-cash bids. The American dream of homeownership wasn't dying of natural causes. It was being bought out from under people.
Remember, after the crisis, they quickly became the largest owner of single-family homes in the country. They brought them all together. Then they created a company called Invitation Homes. They took it public, and then they got out of it.
They really had, I would say, the best period following the financial crisis, because they were actually able to out there and sort of snatch up properties that had become distressed.
And Blackstone spent over $14 million in California fighting ballot initiatives that would have capped rent increases. They weren't just profiting from the housing crisis, they were spending millions to make sure nobody could stop them. A United Nations human rights expert wrote Blackstone a letter in 2019 saying the company was, quote, undermining domestic laws and policies that would improve access to adequate housing consistent with international human rights law. The United Nations told a private equity firm they were violating the human right to housing. Nothing changed. Now, owning the apartments is one thing, but the real scam, the part that got the Department of Justice involved, is how these landlords decide what to charge you. Enter RealPage. RealPage is a Texas-based software company that sells a tool called YieldStar. Here's how it works. Competing landlords, companies that are supposed to be competing with each other for your business, all feed their private data into the same software. Current rents, vacancy rates, lease dates, move-out patterns. Confidential information that, in any other industry, sharing with your competitors would be called what it is: collusion. RealPage takes all that data, runs it through an algorithm, and spits out a recommended rent for each unit. And that recommendation is almost always higher. The software even has an auto-accept feature, so the landlord doesn't have to think about it. The machine just raises your rent automatically. In the Washington, D.C. metro area, over 90% of units in large apartment buildings were priced using RealPage's software.
RealPage is a revenue management software for landlords and other members of the real estate community to figure out how to price rental properties. And according to the DOJ, they have used and fed confidential information into their algorithm and allowed that algorithm to offer options that illegally conduct antitrust activity violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. And so what the DOJ is saying essentially, the way that Attorney General Merrick Garland put it is the rent is too damn high and this is contributing to it. And essentially it is allowing landlords to justify maximizing rent hikes. And this comes as, of course, rent makes up the largest portion of inflation data that we're always here reporting on.
In some markets, half of all landlords are using the same algorithm. Think about that. Your options aren't really options if every apartment you look at is priced by the same machine. In 2022, ProPublica published an investigation that blew this wide open. Legal experts said what RealPage was doing could amount to cartel-like behavior. The DOJ filed an antitrust lawsuit in 2024, joined by 10 state attorneys general, calling it exactly what it was: algorithmic price fixing.
RealPage sells landlords what it calls, quote, revenue management software. We allege that this software is developed, marketed, and sold to enable landlords to sidestep vigorous competition in the rental market.
Prosecutors wrote something in their filing that captures the entire era we're living in. They said that in the old days, collusion happened with a formal handshake in a clandestine meeting. But today, algorithms are the new frontier. In November 2025, RealPage settled with the DOJ. No financial penalties, no admission of wrongdoing. The Biden White House estimated that algorithmic rent setting cost American renters nearly $4 billion in 2023 alone. $4 billion, and nobody went to jail, nobody paid a cent. The settlement was so weak that RealPage immediately turned around and sued the state of New York for trying to ban its software. That's how confident they are. They got caught running what prosecutors called a price-fixing scheme. And their response was to sue the people trying to stop them. Let's talk about what this has done to people. According to the latest census data, over 23 million renter households in America are now cost-burdened, spending more than 30% of their income just on rent and utilities. That's more than half of all renters, a record high. 12 million of those are severely cost-burdened, spending more than half their income on housing. If you make less than $30,000 a year, you have a median of $250 left per month after rent. For food, transportation, medicine, everything. Since 2001, median rents have climbed 21%. Renters' incomes up just 2%. And for the lowest earners, incomes actually dropped 12%, while rents climbed 18%. Meanwhile, the 6 largest corporate landlord companies posted nearly $300 million in combined profit increases in just the first quarter of 2024. Rents have jumped 31% since 2019, while wages rose 23%. You'd need to earn $80,000 a year just to avoid being rent-burdened.
Prices rose 40% from the start of the pandemic.
In the final quarter of 2022, the typical U.S. home sold for a record-shattering $468,000. That's unaffordable for most Americans, leaving them to rent.
The housing costs are completely out of line with wages.
Some members of Congress believe Wall Street is a part of the problem.
What's outrageous is your tax dollars are helping Wall Street buy up single-family homes. You're subsidizing Wall Street.
Massive private equity firms like Blackstone and Pradium Partners have backed a relatively new breed of homeowner, the corporation. This growing industry buys or builds single-family homes and then rents them out.
You might be wondering, if the problem is this obvious and the data is this clear, why doesn't anything change? Because the people who profit from the system are the same people funding the campaigns of the people who could change it. Blackstone's CEO, Stephen Schwarzman, was one of the largest individual donors to the 2024 presidential campaign. Corporate landlords collectively spend hundreds of millions on lobbying and political donations every cycle. They fund ballot measure campaigns to defeat rent control. They lobby state legislatures to preempt local tenant protections. In many Sunbelt states, it's actually illegal for cities to pass their own rent stabilization laws because the state government backed by real estate money, has blocked them. And here's the final twist. The industry's favorite talking point is that we just need to build more housing. And they're not wrong that supply matters, but look at what they're actually building. Luxury units, glass towers with rooftop pools and co-working spaces charging $3,000 a month for a studio. Since 2012, the country has lost 2.1 million rental units with rents under $600 a month. Those are gone, replaced by units that cost 3, 4, 5 times as much. The supply is increasing at the top while vanishing at the bottom. They're not building housing for the people who need it. They're building investment vehicles for the people who already have money. And then they point to the crane on the skyline and say, "See, we're solving the problem." They're not solving it. They're profiting from it. So why do we accept it? Why do 23 million cost-burdened households just keep paying? There's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It was discovered by Martin Seligman in the 1960s. In the original experiment, animals who were repeatedly subjected to conditions they couldn't control eventually stopped trying to escape, even when an exit was offered. That's what the modern rental market has done to an entire generation. You can't buy a home because prices are insane and interest rates are high. You can't negotiate your rent because an algorithm set it. You can't move to a cheaper apartment because every apartment in your area is priced by the same software. You can't vote your way out because the landlords fund the campaigns. Every escape route has been closed, so you stop looking for one. And the industry knows this. That's why 85% of landlords raised rents in 2024, and 78% plan to raise them again in 2025. They're not worried about losing you. Where are you going to go? This is the most profitable form of learned helplessness in American history. You're not trapped by chains, you're trapped by a lease agreement, an algorithm, and a political system that sold your housing security to the highest bidder. But here's the thing about learned helplessness. It can be unlearned. The moment you understand the system, you start seeing where the cracks are. And the cracks are real. California and New York just signed laws cracking down on algorithmic rent settings, giving nonprofits the right of first refusal. Tenants in New York sued Blackstone and won, preventing the deregulation of thousands of rent-stabilized apartments. Greystar, the nation's largest landlord, just paid $57 million in settlements. The DOJ, for all its flaws, took the unprecedented step of suing an algorithm. These things are happening, but they only happen when enough people understand the game. So here's what you can do. Learn your rights. 22 states plus DC have some form of rent regulation. Look up what applies to you. Join or support a local tenant union. Organized tenants get better outcomes, period. Support legislation that targets the producers of the problem, not the consumers. Extended producer responsibility applied to housing means making corporate landlords pay for the externalities they create. And the next time your rent goes up and your landlord tells you it's just the market, remember that the market was set by a machine trained on your competitors' data, designed to extract the maximum amount of money you'll tolerate before you break. That's not a market. That's a shakedown. Your rent isn't high because the world is expensive. Your rent is high because someone figured out exactly how much they can take from you, and no one stopped them until now, because now you know. If this changed how you think about your rent, share it with your roommate, your neighbor, your landlord. Hit subscribe if you want more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one.